Hi, guys. This is Cliff from cliffslist, and today I've got a very unique person with some interesting angles on a variety of topics, and especially we're going to cover his long history with women. George Dubec is my guest today. George, perhaps you can start off by telling people a little bit about yourself for anybody who isn't familiar with you and what you do and everything like that.
All right. Well, Cliff, it's great to be on your show. I live in South Florida. I moved down here in 1985 from Ohio. I was a former engineer at General Motors, and then I bought my job out and became an entrepreneur. And when I moved to Florida, I started getting involved in a lot of different businesses and activities. One of my big ones was from 1985 to 1992. My wife and I ran the largest singles network in South Florida. It was called the Find a Mate Singles Network. And we were teaching a course called Find a Mate. And we taught people, men and women of all ages, how to find an ideal partner for them, depending on what they were looking for. And we used to have classes all up and down South Florida, Palm Beach Junior College, Broward Community College, Miami-Dade Community College. At one time, we had about 10,000 single people in our network. And we used to do cruises, dance parties. Eventually, I got on the Sally Jesse Raphael show. Remember her?
Oh, sure.
Phil Donahue, Faith Daniels show. And then in 1992, my wife got pregnant, and we sold that business because it was too intensive with late nights and parties and stuff like that. And we got into the high-tech world. But this was before online dating, and we did what was called computer matchmaking. They did have computers, and we would get a lot of our singles, their profiles, and then we would try to match them up based on certain criteria, which was kind of primitive. But at the time, that's really what we had to work with. So I have a lot of experience working with singles of all ages, all types. I've heard all the stories. In fact, back in those days, remember the personal ads in the newspaper?
Sure.
And that's how people would hook up. They'd put in personal ads, and people would contact each other based on their ads, which were kind of like online dating today, where there's a lot of phoniness and liars and people fabricating the truth just to get somebody's interest.
Right.
So anyway, so that was a lot of experience there. And then I've written books. I have a book called the Personal Introduction Book for Single. And basically, I teach a program that I actually used to find my wife back in 1979. It's called referral matchmaking. I've found that this is probably the ultimate best way to find an ideal mate. And the way that works, Cliff, is that, well, and I'll share my own experience. This was back in the late 70s, okay? I had a three-piece white suit, black shirt, gold chains. I had a Smoking the Bandit Firebird. I was a great disco dancer. And if you ever watch Saturday Night Fever, I lived that life. I mean, I'd walk into the club and all these girls would run up to me and they'd say, will you dance when Boogie Oogie Oogie comes on? Or, you know, and so it was fun. I mean, the disco era was great. And I dated lots and lots of women, but I never seemed to really connect with the kind of woman I wanted to be with. And I said, well, how do you go about this? I mean, I spent all this time going to these nightclubs and discos and dating girls, but and what, you know what my main problem was, Cliff? All the girls that I wound up dating were hot looking blondes with big boobs. And I thought to myself, well, I don't want to marry these girls. But because I'm a male and men are visual, and you go into the bar, and what do you look at? You look at the sexiest, hottest looking girl, and that's who you want to be with. But it really wasn't my desire to live my life with somebody like that. So what I did at the time is I made what's called a love list. I wrote down everything I wanted in the opposite sex: personality traits, physical characteristics, background, experience, deal breakers, deal makers. And I gave copies to my 10 best male friends who were single, and they were meeting women all the time. So 3 months later, my best friend Paul calls me up. He says, hey, George, you got to meet this girl. He introduced me to this girl who is now my wife of 45 years. And she fit my list like, boom, perfect. So that's what I recommend people do. Use your own social network of friends, family, single friends to help you find somebody that is compatible and ideal for you. So there you go.
Now that's definitely one of the strong theories I think running through the niche right now, and that there's been the observation that if you go up to women today, go up to an attractive woman, you ask them who were the last five guys that they dated, and where did you meet them, and usually almost all of them it's through a friend, it's through an introduction, rather than met them on social media or met them through Tinder or something like that. The ones that became their relationships typically have been ones that they've been introduced to, and my personal experience has been the same as well. When I think back on who were my serious girlfriends, pretty much all of them, not all of them. I have actually a couple that I did met otherwise, but most of them were introduced to me by somebody I knew. So I think that that's a very valid thing. I think another thing that you mentioned, which I found very insightful, which when you're doing these matchmaking things, these dating things that you were saying, you were also teaching them how to meet people, which I think is one of the things that these programs typically lacks, which is you put someone together and they have no idea what to do. Like they've got to be guided and taught. I think this is the piece that's usually missing. From you meet somebody, and unless you already have those skills, most people are a little bit lost on what to do next. And I think that's definitely the case.
Well, the second step I had, Cliff, was I call it the 20-question interview. So I wrote down 20 important questions that fit my lifestyle at the time. Of course, I was a 32-year-old guy. So it's different than I would maybe make at this point in my life. So you would have to write down, I'd say it's like a job interview. So when I would meet a girl that fit my description, I would say, do you mind if I ask you some questions? And I would do this as soon as possible and get to the point. Instead of wasting 5-6 dates to find information out, go up front. Now, the number one qualifier is if the woman was uncomfortable and she didn't want to answer my questions. What does that mean? That disqualifies her because she's not interested in me. Any woman that had an interest in me would be more than happy to answer my questions, right? Yep. So there you go. There's your number one qualifier. If they're uncomfortable or they don't want to answer questions or no, I'm not interested right now in you having interviewing me or whatever, then move on because there's just something not connecting there. So I always tell people to interview the person almost like a job interview. And one of the questions that I would ask today, which I did not at the time because I didn't think about it, but maybe the most important question is, hey, listen, if you found the right person at this point in your life, what is your goal? What is your end goal? What's your objective? Ask them up front. You want to get married? You want a partner? You want somebody just to date? You want an escort? Like, what is it that you want? And ask them right up front. And if they hesitate or if they don't know and you want to get married and this person's not sure what they want, then why would you even go out with them? Mm-hmm. So again, you're trying to make somebody fit a square peg in a round hole. Find somebody that goes, yeah, I'm looking to find some woman to get married, maybe have kids or whatever. So they got to fit your goals, match your goals with their goals.
Okay. Let's go back a little bit. Can you, I'd like to learn a little bit about your own sort of skills how you developed your own skills with women, in terms of when you first started dating, for example, what you was it something that just came naturally to you? Was it something that you learned a certain way? What were the insights? How did you get the insights that you did get? Did you have a certain experiences which taught you things? This is the kind of thing I'd like to zero in a little bit on.
Yeah, well, I got married at 20 years old. I got a girl pregnant. Wow. I had 2 kids. I got divorced when I was about 27 years old. So I was thrust into the single scene. This was in small town, Ohio. I was in Warren, Ohio at the time. I was divorced. And again, this was about 1975. So at that point in time, I had no idea on how to operate with women. And I was really a nice guy. So I would go out to the clubs. I'd walk up to a female. I'd introduce myself. I'd be very nice and polite, shake their hand maybe. I got terrible results, terrible. So I ran into this guy. He became my best friend. His name was Paul. He was kind of a husky guy, smoked cigars, loud, boisterous. And I started going out with him to clubs, and I'd see him walk up to girls, and he was obnoxious actually a lot. In fact, today he'd probably be arrested, okay? But this was before all this sexual sensitivity. But he would go up to girls and he'd grab them by the butt. He'd actually kiss strange girls. He'd just go over and kiss them. And I go, Paul, what are you doing? But I would watch the girls' reactions, and they absolutely loved it. And I thought, well, wait a minute. I'm doing something wrong. Look at this guy. He's getting all the attention because he's kind of loud and boisterous and just appealing, I guess. And it's kind of like a lot of girls like the bad boys. I learned that too. That every girl has one bad boy in her life that she was attracted to, with tattoos and maybe, late night party guy. Anyway, so I learned I never became quite like he was, but I said to myself, you know what? You can act any way you want and approach a woman, and it doesn't matter. It does not matter if you're loud, if you're polite, if you're nice. The whole idea is you got to make the connection. You got to approach them and see what happens. That's what I tell people. Be proactive. In fact, back in my day, when I was running my singles business, I would have very successful, rich, good-looking guys hire me to take them out to clubs and show them how to meet women. They didn't know how to meet women. They could hire and fire people. They could run a business, but put them in front of a group of females and they were tongue-tied. They didn't know what to do. So I would basically just teach them. We'd go to clubs and they would pay me per hour to take them to a club. And I would walk in a club. I'd say, okay, pick out some woman. And they would just sit there and watch me. And I would go over and it would just gave them confidence because they would see me do it. And they'd go, wow, look at what you did. I go, yeah, you can do the same thing. Just do it. My thing is just do it. Just go over there. And a lot of times you're going to get bad reactions. So what? So go to the next one. And eventually it just becomes a numbers game. And I remember one of the tricks that my friends and I would use, we would go into a club and we would have a contest. I'd tell my friend, you go on the left side, I'll go to the right side, and I'll meet you back in a half hour and see who can get the most phone numbers. So we would actually practice getting girls' phone numbers, even though we didn't care about the girls. But we want to see, what did it take to get a girl's phone number? And so you just learn by doing it and doing it and doing it.
Well, certainly, being indifferent has a real appeal because it's like everybody wants what they can't have. But I guess I'm a little curious how you developed that technique or approach or strategy.
Well, like I said, when I was first somewhat shy and inhibited and kind of polite, and I learned that. Well, here's one thing that I learned, because I've been a public speaker. I've been in movies, on TV, on the radio. Number one, Cliff, no matter how you act when you walk in a room, you could be nice and polite, or you could be loud and boisterous, or you could just be vanilla, conservative. It doesn't matter how you act. 10% of the people in that room will hate you. 10% will like you, and 80% don't care. So I always tell people, act any way you want. Sometimes when I go out, I act really loud and I have a big ego at times. And other times I'm laid back and quiet, and it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter how you act. Forget about it. Just do it. I keep telling people, just interact with people. Go up and talk to people. Shake their hands. Go over and meet women. And then the other thing I learned about women, and this is amazing, it's called persistence. If you walk up to a woman and she shows disinterest, and by the way, I never use the word rejection. You are never rejected. It's only disinterest at that point in time. So if you go up to a woman and you approach her and she shows disinterest, wait a while and go back and approach her again. The second time, she's going to be a little bit more friendly because she recognizes you now. And even if she shows disinterest, wait a while, go back a third time. And it's amazing. By then, she might actually start talking to you.
That's
And
very,
one of the ways I learned that is I'll never forget this. I remember I walked up to a really pretty young lady at a disco one night. I asked her to dance. She basically blew me off, like kind of, get out of here. 3 weeks later, I was at a party and my friend introduced me to the same girl and she was all over me. And I'm going, after a while, I said, you know what? I said, you remember I met you 3 weeks ago at the club? She goes, no, I don't remember. So it was a time and a place, a different setting, a different scenario. So again, it doesn't matter. Just do it. Just go ahead and keep doing it. Keep approaching people, talking to people, do whatever you want. That's my best advice.
what maybe you have some insights that you learned from when you were doing the singles business. Maybe some insights into, I guess, how women were responding to your business there, and how that was working.
Well, one of the things I learned is that there's a phrase out there that women make a judgment within, like, I don't know, like 30 seconds, whether they're really interested in you or not. So it kind of doesn't matter what you do. If she has that light in her eye based on you, whether the way you look or talk or walk or whatever, that's the initial ingredient that you need to continue the whole process. But one thing I did learn, if the girl talks to you in a polite, mannerly way, or even a business-like way, she's not that interested in you. But if you tell her things and she laughs and giggles and turns her head and flips her hair, you know that she has interest in you. It's like learning body language. It's amazing. If you watch, when you're talking to a female, if you watch her body language, you can tell her level of interest real easy.
Well, I guess I'm interested in trying to extract as much insights from you as I can from your experience with women. Like, for example, what's maintained your relationship with your wife as long as it has? Like, what's been the key to that, for example?
Well, the key to that I tell young people today is it's basically not about love, sex, romance, or dating, or how much fun they are. Because after a certain amount of time, after 45 years, you've experienced almost everything you can possibly experience sexually, emotionally, physically with a woman or a man, vice versa. It doesn't matter. It just over a long period of time, you finally kind of just get into a flow. I call it a flow. Like my wife and I are in a flow. We don't have to tell each other we love you, honey, or we don't have to buy flowers or gifts. Basically, we just live together and we have kids. And it's wonderful. It's better than in the first beginning when we were madly in love and had all this lust and romance. It was very hard. You had to put more time and energy into it to try to convince the other person that you love them. Now I don't have to convince my wife that I love her. She knows I do. It's been 45 years, and it's kind of like you just get used to each other. Maybe that's the other thing. But it's really the commitment and the obligation that you put into the relationship, that you're committed to it. Because one thing that I learned is everybody, if you're married long enough, you'll get to a point where you hate the other person. You actually hate the person. You can't stand them. And what happens in our society, whether it's 5 years, the 7-year itch, 10 years, or 15 years, when people in this society get to that point, they want to go out and look for somebody else to replace this person they can't stand. So it's kind of like hitting the wall as a runner. When you hit that wall, you just got to lay back and wait, and you get through it, and then everything's fine. But people in our society are too quick to make a judgment and want to change everything. And they go actually from the frying pan into the fire, because what happens when you find somebody new, it's exciting for a while, but then it winds up being the same thing you just got out of.
Right.
So, basically, when I grew up in small town Ohio, I was born in 1946, but nobody in my town, nobody got divorced. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, you didn't even hear the word divorce. It wasn't even spoken about. And then back in those days, if you did want a divorce, you had to go in front of a court. I don't know if you remember that or know that. You had to actually have a court case, and a judge would have to grant you the divorce.
Yeah. It's not, isn't it more or less the same today?
No. In the 70s, you could go down to court and do what's called an annulment. Anybody, like right now, if I want to divorce my wife, I can just divorce her. I can go down to court, and she can go down to court, and we sign what's called annulment papers, and that's it. And the only reason you need an attorney is to divide up, if you're having an issue in dividing up your assets. But you don't have to go to court and have a judge grant you a divorce. You just file for it. If you both agree. Now, if somebody doesn't agree, then, you got a problem. But in today's world, most people that are going to divorce, they want to do it. They both kind of want to do it. But that whole the whole thing changed in the mid 70s when they allowed people to have an annulment. Before the mid 70s, everybody had to go to court and have a court judge grant you the divorce. So that's when I call it opened Pandora's box, because then people just looked at marriage as kind of a test run. Well, let's just try this out. If it doesn't work, we'll get divorced. That's the worst possible way to think about getting into a relationship.
Yeah. It's kind of like you're buying something with a 30-day money-back guarantee in a way.
Well, the thing is, we also don't have any training in how to find a mate. We don't have any training in what the opposite sex needs or wants. I mean, think about it. I went to college. I went all through school. I think I had one course in college on human sexuality, which was very scientific. It didn't talk about emotions or dating or how women feel, how men feel. And I think it's pretty much the same way today. Mm-hmm. I don't really think they have courses teaching somebody how to find an ideal mate.
Well, finding is one thing. It's also how to relate to them and get along with them and connect with them. I think
right.
those are
how to live with another person.
Yeah, sure.
How to develop what happens after you have children, which is another big issue. That when a guy, one of my favorite phrases is, a good date does not make a good mate. You can have a lot of fun, great sex with somebody, but then you get married and real life comes into play, money, finances, kids, and all of a sudden that hot date, that fun date is no longer a fun date anymore. It's somebody you got to live with and live in the trenches with and fight the wars with. And that's a whole different ball game.
So what advice would you give somebody today after looking back on your experiences and your history in order to connect with women today?
Well, you know what, actually, I kind of stopped giving people advice. The only advice I give you is use the referral matchmaking if you want to find somebody for love, sex, romance, or a lifelong partner. Use that and connect with that person. But, I'll tell you, Cliff, we have a culture problem. Until our culture changes, there's really nothing I could relay to younger couples or people about relationships. In fact, I've had many, many people ask me to get back into business, and I won't do it because our culture is so screwed up. It's such a mess. It's almost like people get together. I call it serial monogamy. They get together for a period of time, and then it shifts and it changes, and then they're out of it. Again, there's no long-term commitments or responsibility or obligation anymore in a relationship. It just doesn't exist. So I don't know, what advice would you give somebody when you know that they're not really committed to that long-term? They're not going to commit till death do us part. Remember that in the marriage vows? Mm-hmm. How many people go into a marriage with that in their mind? I'm not leaving this person till they die. I don't think anybody really believes that.
Not today. I don't think it's different. Yeah.
So until that comes back, I can't give anybody advice about a relationship, because what that really means is that you're not committed to it. So if you're not committed to it, what can I tell you? There's nothing to tell a person. So, I remember I got divorced. I got a young girl pregnant when I was 20 years old, and we had 2 kids. And we were totally not compatible for each other. And we hit the 70s, and that's when all hell broke loose. Like I said, everybody was getting annulments and divorced, and it just became like popular to get divorced. Actually,
Yeah.
you know, it was seemed to be okay at that time. Before then, before the 70s, if you got divorced, you were like a black sheep in town. Nobody would want to even have anything to do with you. Like there was something wrong with you. So nowadays, I mean, it doesn't even matter. I mean, women are dating married men. I mean, it's like, I mean, if you tell a woman today you're married, they don't care. I've had women hit me up on social media and they ask to come down and meet me. They're from other towns and other countries, and they're young girls. And I tell them I'm married. I live with my wife. I got kids. They say, that's okay. I think you're interesting. I'd like to come and meet you. They'll fly in to South Florida and meet me. I go, for what? I mean, it's such a crazy world. I don't get it.
You know, things are things are quite different today, I think, that's for sure.
Well, here's the other thing. I told my wife, like when we first met, we were definitely madly in love. We were compatible sexually, mentally, physically, and everything. I mean, it was great connection. But I told my wife, I said, you know what? If I would have met you today and I was 32 years old and you were 22 and we would have met with everything going on today, I said, I don't think I would have lasted 3 years with you. There's just too many choices. I mean, every time I turn my phone on, I got these beautiful girls posting up, sending me pictures, texting me. It's like, I mean, there's way too many options and choices out there that you can connect with.
Well, I guess if you were single today, what would you do?
I wouldn't want to be single. To be honest with you, I would be scared to be single. And the other thing that, and I know that this is not a popular thing to say, but I lived in an era where men were men and women were women. When you were with a woman, you felt like she was a woman. You felt like you wanted to protect her. You felt manly. You felt like you wanted to be nice and courteous and you know, kind of protective of her. I don't feel that way with women today. I call women today she-males. They're not males and they're not females. They want to be treated like a woman, but they want to compete with you and they want to be as good as you or better. And I'll be honest with you, I don't believe that's a good scenario for any kind of relationship. I think a man needs to be a man and a woman needs to be a woman, whatever that however you define it. But you need to make the man feel like he's the man, and the guy wants to protect his wife and kids and so forth and be the man of the house. And I don't think that exists today. Very seldom. Very. I don't know where it exists, but I don't think people operate like that.
No, I think you're on target with what's going on today. Is there anything that you would advise to a young guy today, if, in terms of starting out with having to start looking for a woman and how to connect with one?
Well, the only thing, like I tell you, is use the referral matchmaking. Use your social circle to try to find somebody that would be compatible. And then the other thing is I tell everybody today, because everybody's now at a different age, they get married later. Sometimes they don't have kids, but I recommend that every couple have at least 3 kids, minimum. I know it sounds tough, but when you're young, it really ruins your lifestyle. It's really hard to deal with young kids today. But when you're my age, they'll become a blessing. The more kids you have, the more potential support you have when you're older. Somebody to take care of you potentially.
Mm-hmm.
If you have 1 kid and that kid moves to England and you become old and decrepit and you need help and you lose your spouse and you're by yourself, well, 1 kid may not be able to take care of you. If you have at least 3, there's a possibility 1 out of 3 might be around to help support you and take care of you. Maybe. The more kids you have, the more possibilities you have of helping you and your wife or whatever the situation is when you get older.
Well, I think you've given us a good picture of a couple of very interesting experiences with women. maybe you can tell people now a little bit more about what you offer in terms of you have products, coaching. I don't know what you would offer somebody who would be interested to learn more from you.
Yeah, well, I've written books. I have books on how to ask all the right questions for the interview process when you meet somebody. I have another book called A Personal Introduction Handbook for Singles, which teaches you the referral matchmaking system. I also wrote books on business networking because that's also my specialty, learning how to meet people in business. That's a whole nother skill set on how to make contacts and how to follow up and follow through with business connections. So I have all my books on Amazon. And you can go to my website, theultimatenetworker.com, and it has all my books listed there. And if anybody wants to get on my email list, they can sign up, put your name and email address in there, and I'll put you on my list for events that we might have coming up or anything that is new coming down the pike. I really don't do personal coaching. I've had so many people ask me. I really have a hard time trying to, again, give advice today other than use your social network to help you find an ideal mate and make a list of what you want as a partner. That's critical. You have to write down things that you desire, somebody that you want to live with. And that's it in a nutshell, really.
Well, I think you've given us some very interesting comments today, and I really appreciate your taking the time with me. And I really enjoyed listening to a lot of your stories and things. And again, I appreciate the time you've taken. And I'm sure that we'll get some interesting response to this. And hopefully we'll probably do this again soon.
Okay. Well, yeah, anytime. In fact, if you want to have another show on business networking, again, we could get involved in that, or also into, like you kind of mentioned, or we talked a little bit about how do you keep a relationship? What are the things that strategies and things that you should do to maintain that relationship over a long period of time? That's a whole nother, we could spend a whole show on that.
It's a good idea. Well, I'm going to thank you, and I'm going to end this now, but we'll definitely be in touch. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks, Cliff. It was great. Bye-bye, everybody.